Avengers Age of Ultron is garbage, folks.
Is it an alligator or a crocodile? I don't know the difference, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
Look at that. That is a werewolf, folks.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Den of Geek Presents Marvel Standom Live. I am your host, Mike Cicchini, and with me, for all time and always, or at least until they get sick of me, we have Den of Geek TV editor Alec Bajalid, Den of Geek News and Features editor Kirsten Howard, and welcome back to the show, House to Astonish host and master of the crazy title card, Mr. Al Kennedy. Al, how you doing?
I'm good. I like my new title card. This is excellent. It plays into both the fact that I'm Scottish and that you should never put me in your mouth.
Remember, this is a PG-13 show, please. Thank you very much.
I mean, a lot of people are allergic to me.
Yeah, you and Kirsty are, kind of conspiring to push the envelope already, and we're only 30 seconds into the show, so I see what is in store for me.
What have I done? I've done nothing.
They're sun poisoned. They have no idea what's going on.
It's so hot here.
I'm giving them some leeway here because it is absurdly hot in the UK, and while I am an iguana because of my Mediterranean blood, and I love hot and humid New York City summers, that is not for everybody. So let's be extra kind to Kirsty and Al this week because they are laboring under the effects of climate change, just as I was last week when I was inhaling smoke during the show from the Canadian wildfires. This week, in case you do not already know, it is another edition of the Marvel Standom Book Club, and we are talking about, Kirsty?
Meet the Skrulls.
Meet the Skrulls, which I did read, I swear to God. Al, were you the one who suggested this?
Yeah, I think partly because it's obviously just very topical right now, and partly because I hadn't read it and I wanted an excuse to read it. Like, I'd been looking for a real reason to motivate myself to read it. And the fact that Secret Invasion is just around the corner was the perfect time to go, right, okay, well, this is it. This is where I'm going to actually make the leap into reading Meet the Skrulls.
I'm so glad that we read this book. This is just like, it's another gem. Just another absolute gem that I tore through in one sitting. How had I never heard of this?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's not the kind of thing that you would think would immediately get greenlit as a series, because it's a 5-issue miniseries with absolutely no established characters in it at all. And it's 5 or 4 Skrulls who just happen to be this sleeper cell, as what I'm sure we'll get on to. It's a fairly big gamble, I would have said. This is not the kind of thing where you put it out there thinking it's going to do Secret Wars numbers.
Kirsty, I think you should run this down for everybody a little bit, right? And then we'll start really diving into the glory that is Meet the Skrulls.
I'll do a little summary of the plot for you and apologize for my pronunciation ahead of time. Meet the Skrulls is a 5-issue series from Robbie Thompson and Nico Onrushan. I scrubbed through so many YouTube videos trying to work out how to pronounce his name. I'm so sorry, Nico. Launched off the back of Captain Marvel's theatrical release. The upsetting and affecting story of the book follows the Warners, an undercover family of Skrulls who are trying to stop a mysterious effort called Project Blossom from developing tech that would make all Skrulls' true forms visible and therefore eliminate them as a threat. The Warners are invariably struggling to complete their mission on Earth, but eventually do so, retrieving the source of Project Blossom's power, their captured third daughter from Stark HQ. However, Stark is not involved in Project Blossom, and it turns out that the effort is in fact being run by the Kree under Stark's oblivious nose. The family end up being cut off from the Skrull Empire after they are betrayed by a superior, with their patriarch dead and their future uncertain. And there's also more, but we'll discuss that in a bit.
It sounds like kind of unassuming, and I guess by like Marvel limited series standards, it kind of is, right? Again, I was absolutely floored by this book. I don't exactly know why, but I want to start with Alec, just because I feel like Alec, as the, general MCU appreciator, but, relative Marvel Comics neophyte, is usually a pretty good barometer, even when we don't see eye to eye on stuff. So I'm real curious how something like this hit you, Alec.
I like, when you're doing an experiment and you have to establish a baseline first, just like how baseline reality is. That's my role on Marvel Standom. Let's get the ground set first, see what the normal person, how they would respond to this, and then we'll go into our thoughts. Well, establishing the baseline on this one, I quite liked it. This was very good. Hearing some of your superlatives, Mike, I get the sense you may have enjoyed it even more than I did. But I'm in like solid 7 and 8 out of 10 territory. I thought it was a very fun read. As somebody who really loves The Americans, one of the finest TV dramas of all time, this really hits home and does that secret agent spy family format really well. Moves along at a nice pace. I like the characters. I have very little to complain about this week. This is one of the rare comic assignments in which I was not tortured.
Kirsty, how about you?
I really liked it. Yeah, really liked it. It reminded me of Vision. Is that Tom King? I can never remember. Yeah, it reminded me of that. Really well structured, well told, easy to read, not like jam packed with like dialogue or exposition or things that are too tricky to understand. Like Al said, like it's only got Tony Stark in it. It's only briefly. We don't know these people, but we get to know them really quickly. So excellent craftsmanship here. And this is written by Robbie Thompson, who was the executive producer of Supernatural and The Winchesters, and wrote for those shows. And he's obviously got some experience, dealing with like monsters on the run from hunters, but this feels like it's more of a reverse version of that story. So it's really, really good, really touching. And I thought it ended on quite a thoughtful note. The comic straight up murders some children in the first few pages, so it's not something that you can read lightly, maybe, but it's good. It's good stuff. I recommend it.
Wow, you're the one who brought this to our attention, so I take it, was this your first read as well?
It was, yeah, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I going into it, I knew that it was Robbie Thompson was the writer, and I think the fact that he had all this experience with Supernatural, with the Winchesters, it shows through in the fact that you've got this family dynamic where everyone is very dependent on each other because they're the only people who really understand the world that they have to share with them, the family unit. But at the same time, they're very antagonistic towards each other in that very kind of the Winchestery way. Like the Winchesters, for anybody who hasn't seen Supernatural, there's so much of it. I don't know how you've managed that, but like if you haven't seen Supernatural, it's basically about a couple of underwear models who drive a car around and kill things. And they never met a secret that they couldn't keep from each other. Particularly if it was going to be extremely destructive to their relationship. And it's just a CW thing, I think. Like anytime you have any character on a CW show that's got a secret of any kind, they're always just like, will I tell the most important person in my life about this? No, I'm sure it'll be fine. And then, at the end of the season, it comes back and somebody gets stabbed or shot or blown up or goes to hell or whatever. But anyway, that's the general dynamic of Supernatural. And that kind of thing plays out in Meet the Skrulls as well. Because, as Alec was saying, The Americans is a huge influence here because, again, it's about this embedded agents, this sleeper cell who are kind of biding their time at the direction of their spy masters. But at the same time, it is a family setup, which is very like The Americans, but it's also very like Supernatural. And Robbie Thompson does such a good job of threading the family interaction stuff in with the spy elements. Really, really reads fantastically. I'm so glad that I got to read this. The art being by Nico, and I'm going to try this now and see if he hates me any less for it, but Nico Enrichon, I'm just going to go with Enrichon. Nico Enrichon, I first saw the work of on a Vertigo graphic novel called Pride of Baghdad, which was written by Brian K. Vaughan pre-Saga, pre-Ex Machina, all those kind of big hits they had. I think it was one of the first things he did for Vertigo, maybe around the same time as he was starting out doing While It Last Man. But it's about a pride of lions that are inadvertently freed from a zoo during the Iraq War in Baghdad. It's a great story. It's a very sad story. The art is unbelievable. Like, it is so good. Nico has, I'm going to stick with Nico. I'm not going to go into the surname again. He's kind of popped up in a few different places since then. Did a run on New Mutants, bizarrely. But this is the first thing I've seen from him in a little while, and it is gorgeous. It's so good looking. So yeah, that's my general thoughts. I think it's terrific.
What struck me about this is that, like, I can understand why this wouldn't make much of a splash as single issues, as a limited series. And I can also see how this was commissioned, you know, during the wave of, like, you know, Captain Marvel mania, as that movie went to make $1 billion. But this book works so well as something that, if you have zero knowledge of Marvel Comics, if all of your Marvel knowledge comes solely from the MCU, you could pick this book up after watching Captain Marvel and feel like you are getting more of the story that is such a difficult balance to strike. At the same time, if you removed the overt Marvel names and references, like if the Skrulls were just shape-shifting aliens, if Tony Stark was just like a, you know, some independent type superhero like you would find in, you know, like an Invincible comic or something, the pacing, the style, the way this is so self-contained, the way it gives you everything that you need from page one. If this was just like an independent comic as well, you know, in a sci-fi world that where, you know, there's an armored superhero who pops in every now and then, it would still work just as well. Like, that is the thing that kind of fascinated me so much. Like, knowledge of Marvel Comics history only enriches, you know, what is there on the page, but it's not necessary. You know what I mean? Like, you can come at this as a Marvel Comics fan, as an MCU fan, but I also kind of feel like you could just come at this, like, if this was like a self-contained graphic novel, I almost wonder if this would have made more of a splash, like, without, you know, in critical circles and wherever else, like, without the Marvel baggage attached to it, right? It's just so good. Like, and it doesn't do any one thing particularly extraordinarily. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Kirsty mentioned earlier, you know, there is some similarity with, say, Tom King's Vision, which obviously was a big influence on WandaVision and is a perennial trade paperback seller, as it should be. Vision is like a real, you know, like, really gets into your soul in ways that Meet the Skrulls maybe doesn't. But it's just as effective. Like, I just, you know, so again, like, this is not like, you know, again, I don't know if this is like a masterpiece level book, but it's really good. And I feel like it deserves more attention. It feels like it should be a perennial trade paperback seller. I don't know why this isn't being kind of championed more with Secret Invasion, like, you know, within sight now. I mean, like, I'm going to be telling people on this show and elsewhere, don't read Secret Invasion if you're watching Secret Invasion. Read Meet the Skrulls.
It's so weird, isn't it? Because in this book, obviously, Gaia is the name of the mum Skrull. I'm just going to call her. Gaia is the name of Emilia Clarke's Skrull in the Secret Invasion TV series. So it feels like this has more connective tissue between Captain Marvel and Secret Invasion than the actual Secret Invasion comic in a lot of ways. And it certainly sets a vibe of like, you know, Skrulls who have been cut loose and are lost and just do not know how to live in our world. So it's honestly a better comic to read than Secret Invasion before the TV show starts.
I think it's definitely, if you were to say, here's the trade paperback of Secret Invasion, the Marvel event series from 2009, and here's the trade paperback of Meet the Skrulls, I definitely would say if you're preparing to watch Secret Invasion, the TV show, then Meet the Skrulls is going to be the better preparation for that to get you into the mindset. I would also say that if you're planning on doing anything at all, I would choose the other comic you're offered over Secret Invasion, because Secret Invasion is a terrible comic. But I think that, Mike, what you were saying about the fact that it came out to no real fanfare, I think if it had been an independent comic, if it had been Meet the Body Snatchers instead of Meet the Skrulls, it would have been more successful, I think, because if you are random 5-issue Marvel miniseries with no major characters other than a spit and cough cameo in like issue 4 or whatever from Iron Man, then what happens is you just get lost. You get totally subsumed by the vast numbers of X-Men and Spider-Man and all the other things that are coming out that have got the marketing budget behind them. But if you're just, no, let's do something with Skrulls because Captain Marvel's coming out. Do we need to put any massive name creators on it? No, but we've got some guys here who are pretty terrific. Let's give them a shot on this. That makes for a great comic, but it doesn't make for a comic that does well out of Marvel. However, if you're doing it as a separate standalone, you know, it's a spy story with shape-changing aliens. It's an elevator pitch. It absolutely sells itself. And I think that if it wasn't trying to compete against every other Marvel title, it would have done better and people would know more about it.
If I heard there was a new show coming out that was, you know, the Americans were shapeshifters, I'd watch it. I would make an effort. I would go out of my way to watch it. So we'll be talking about the Secret Invasion TV show in a bit. But that sounds like a pretty good setup, maybe compared to what we got.
I was going to say exactly that.
Yeah.
I can't speak. Everything you guys are saying makes a lot of sense, and I can't speak to the economics of it. But even from a purely creative standpoint, I think this comic would work better without kind of the shoehorned in Tony Stark cameo. The importance of Tony Stark really imbues what is essentially like a middle manager character with a lot more importance than I think it needs, when he doesn't factor into the story that much.
Yeah, if this was just a shady corporation not going on at Stark or whatever, it wouldn't matter. There's just a few panels with Tony being a dickhead and then leaving, isn't there? People love that though.
I think the thing I'm just going to keep coming back to is this idea that this story is compelling enough even without the Marvel connections, which we rarely see. Like just rarely see in something like this, especially something that is so tied to what was one of the biggest blockbusters of the year. It's a good book to champion, folks. I'm always looking for comics that can be easy entry points for people. I want people to love comics, you know, like you don't have to love superhero comics, right? I mean, like I love superhero comics and I think there's a lot to love within that genre, but like comics as a medium, it's just such a natural way of conveying a story. And I want more people to love comics and not feel like they are homework and not feel as if they are, that they're part of this like massive pop culture blob. It's like, no, just like you listen to music or you read a book or you watch a movie or you watch a TV show, you should be able to pick up a comic. And every now and then, like some of these are going to be Marvel comics and some of these are going to be DC comics. And this is one of those examples. Doesn't have to be as challenging as Vision or, or Watchmen or even Sandman, but I think this has the makings of a perennial book. I wonder if they experimented with different formats, like you're starting to see like those smaller scale, almost like manga sized reprints. Like when I first read Runaways, for example, they were in those like manga, like slightly bigger than digest size. Like that was how they chose to collect them, which was like the most perfect way to present Runaways to a young adult audience. Right. I think they got to find a way to give a book like this another push.
I think the other difficulty that they have with a book like this at Marvel is that this is not an action story.
No.
Marvel's in the business of big superhero action stories, and it does them very well. I mean, it does them badly as well, but like it has the potential to do terrific superhero action stories. But Marvel's thing isn't quiet, dread-filled spy stories. The atmosphere that runs through this comic is not a gung-ho atmosphere. It's a bleak, miserable atmosphere. Everybody in this comic is in one way or another struggling with what they feel that they have to do. Even when you've got the traitor, the Jim Phelps, John Voight character, who is their handler, who sets them up. I would say, though, see, in a modern spy story, like if you ever think that there's a mole, it's definitely always your boss. Like it's never someone who just happens to be on your team. It's never the IT guy. Just go immediately for your boss. That's who it is, particularly if they're a respected character actor. But there's a lot of, meetings in cafes and things like that. It's not the Civil War airport fight. And that, I think, is maybe one of the difficulties to have. Like, how do you actually sell this if you are Marvel? Because it's not your main type of product.
Like, this is my question now. And I apologize, like, if this is getting a little too into the industry weeds for everybody. But DC has, historically they had Vertigo, they had their Black Label line for a while. But even independent of their imprints, they've always been excellent at having perennial titles, right? Like you always know Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, always going to be in print. More recently, Darwin Cook's genius New Frontier, Tom King and Mitch Gerard's Mr. Miracle. They have these books that are kind of like, they're like a cut above. They're not serialized superhero storytelling. They're self-contained. They're meant to, they're meant to live on your bookshelf. They're meant to whatever. What is Marvel's equivalent of that? This is not me saying that they're not telling stories of equal quality that don't deserve this kind of treatment. But what are they? What are Marvel perennials, like, other than, like the Masterworks type stuff and the Epic Collection type stuff? John Hickman's Secret Wars, as brilliant as it is completely impenetrable to a casual reader, right? Like what are they? Civil War is garbage. Secret Invasion is garbage. Like, what are these books? Like, what are the, and again, I keep coming back to Vision. Meet the Skrulls would kind of fit that. What is like the Marvel equivalent of the Black Label? Can anybody help me out here?
The difficulty that Marvel have, or had until recently, was that DC has always taken a long-term view when it comes to keeping things in print. Marvel had a very short-term, bottom-line driven approach to keeping books in print. And a lot of that, it was literally to do with the cost of storing inventory. And this all comes down to Ike Perlmutter, who was, for people who don't know, he was basically the guy at the top of the tree at Marvel until relatively recently. And he is famously a very bottom line driven guy, which extended to things like he cut down the number of toilets that they have in the Marvel offices because he thought for some reason it would reduce costs, I presume, on toilet roll. I don't know. But he was also the guy that the reason why there was no Black Widow action figure at the time of the first Avengers movie is because Ike Perlmutter vetoed it because he said that kids didn't want to buy action figures of women, that kind of thing. He's gone from Marvel now, and hopefully Marvel can take more of a long-term view on things like keeping inventory in print. But it was for a long time utterly ridiculous. Take a book like Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey's Young Avengers, right? When the second trade paperback volume of that came out, the first trade paperback volume was out of print. That's the level of turnaround we're talking about here. Like, it took 6 months between the first volume and the second volume coming out, and by the time the second volume came out, the first volume was out of print. DC, on the other hand, will just keep things in print forever. They'll keep Watchmen in print forever because that's the terms of their deal with Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. They'll keep it in print so they don't need to give the rights back. But for Marvel, there are things that are always going to be in print and are always going to sell. I mean, I really can't stand Civil War, the comic, but Civil War sells gangbusters for Marvel even now. Infinity Gauntlet is another one, sells huge numbers for them on a year-on-year basis. The things that they've done very well with recently, in fact, have not really tended to be the big number stuff that goes through the direct market or even through bookstores. The things that they've done a lot of business on recently have been things like Runaways, Squirrel Girl, Moon Girl, and Devil Dinosaur, and that's through Scholastic Book Fairs, where they sell absolutely ridiculous numbers. The whole reason why Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur made it to, like, whatever it was, issue about 37 or something like that, was because it was being kept alive through book fair trade paperback sales. But Marvel doesn't have that kind of, as you say, that sort of perennial bookshelf of things like, Batman Year One or things like that, Superman for All Seasons, All-Star Superman, that kind of thing. That's not to say it couldn't do. There's no reason why there isn't always a nice collection of Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X or Craven's Last Hunt or Avengers Under Siege or any of the great storylines from Marvel's history. It just is a case that they didn't keep them in print because they could use that inventory storage for something else and not have to pay as much.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And you're absolutely right. But I guess that makes sense from.
It always makes me laugh when you just go like that. That's exactly right, factually accurate. But
I just mean I can offer a compelling Mike defense if you'd like, Mike. I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm one of those casual comic readers, and I have read Batman Year One. I have read The Long Halloween. I have read Watchmen. If you told me I had to pick up a trade paperback of a Marvel book, I would have no idea where to begin.
Yes.
And Infinity Gauntlet is great, but I would never hand a casual fan Infinity Gauntlet, in a million years, right? Yeah. And it's and what DC has done, because Al, everything you said is correct, both about the industrial and economic realities of this, and the long-term views of this. But what they also have been very savvy about creatively is knowing which of those books, New Frontier, the most recent trade paperback edition had a Black Label logo stuck on it. You know what I mean? When they put out Mr. Miracle as single issues, that was not a Black Label book. I don't think. I might be wrong. But when the trade came out, it's Black Label. It's these are the things that you can give to anybody. They can live on your bookshelf. What are the Marvel books that would fall under Marvel's Black Label is what I'm saying. Vision, right? Meet the Skrulls. You know what? I could even make a case for supervillain team up, which you also suggested, right? I feel like supervillain team up, maybe it's not high class enough if we're comparing this to, to Black Label stuff, but you can just give that to somebody and be what a superhero is, what a supervillain is, have fun with this. I think there have to be more of these and we're just not thinking of them, right?
I think you could do it with Daredevil, for example. You could do it with Born Again, or you could do it with Man Without Fear. Easy peasy. Either of those two books you could do it with. X-Men, God Loves Man Kills, you could put in anybody's hands. You don't need to know anything about the 100%, X-Men to read that. Spider-Man, it's more difficult, but there are things like Craven's Last Hunt, for example. Spidey is tricky, I think, a lot of the time because his book has tended to be so serialized. Like the soap opera element of it is so key to that book that it makes it more difficult to do very standalone, discrete volumes. There's plenty of things out there, for example, just recently, Daniel Warren Johnson's Beta Ray Bill miniseries. It's not necessarily the brain food kind of comic, but if you had a large format hardback of Beta Ray Bill by Daniel Warren Johnson, yes, absolutely, I would take that. Weapon X is another good example of it. I think there's a bunch of great stuff that, if Marvel were minded to do it, could make for a terrific bookshelf of perennial volumes, as you say, things that should be kept in print forever. Like the fact that there, from time to time, there may not be a version of Dark Phoenix Saga in print that isn't $100 omnibus is insanity to me. Like, there should always be a good quality and affordable collection, which is just that story. And I don't even mean like an epic collection kind of thing, which is like, here's 20 issues and the Dark Phoenix Saga is somewhere in the middle of these. You have to sift it out like you're panning for it. But it should just be, here's the book. That is the Dark Phoenix Saga. Take that, go and do what you want with that. Preferably read it.
After reading this, I'm really excited to get into Robbie Thompson's Spider-Man comic, which is called Spidey. And the collected edition is called Spidey Freshman Year, I think, which is...
I have read that, and it is really good.
Yeah, so I haven't read any of his comics before, and I'm really excited to read his Spider-Man. I think that could be a fun read, I think. And if you've read it already and recommend it, then I definitely will.
I think that's the only other Robbie Thompson that I've read, now that you mention it. And it's good. It's a good time. It's just what it looks like. Alec, I know we have to move on from this. Like, I took us way into the weeds, but so Alec, you've read Batman Year One, but have you read Daredevil Born Again?
No. And actually, when Al mentioned it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I have. That seems like that might be it, right? Like, if that
Same
is
creative team,
that, like, anybody could just launch into, I think that might be it.
All you need to know is what you know from, the world. And same, like David Mazzucchelli on art, same creative team as Batman Year One. And dare I say, it is even better. That is a book that, in terms of like modern storytelling, it still feels like if that book came out right now, nobody would blink. Sometimes like we've made you read older comics, Alec, and you're like, this is pretty dense. Like, I don't know about this dialogue. Like, it's not an issue in Born Again.
It's absolutely glorious. Daredevil is a weird character in that he really punches above his weight in terms of importance of the character versus quality of the comics. Like, there have been so many amazing Daredevil runs, often tied to the artists, but obviously often tied to the writers rather, but obviously amazing artists have worked on Daredevil too. Because when you think about, Frank Miller, you think about Chip Zdarsky's current run, you think about Ed Brubaker, you think about the Bendis run, you think about the Mark Waid series. You also at that point have to start thinking about the fact that there's Chris Samney involved there. There is, as you say, David Mazzucchelli involved. There is, Michael Lark and people like that. There are amazing creators who have worked on Daredevil over the years. Man Without Fear being a Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. comic it's a terrific combination, but not one I would necessarily have thought to put together. They almost feel like two different sides of the 1980s at Marvel. But in terms of Robbie Thompson stuff, the other amazing series that he did was a 12-issue series called Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme. I mean, it is completely wild in terms of, if you enjoy books like Promethea and things like that, this is a book to be reading because because of the fact that it's the layouts of the pencils and so on. There are these incredible double page spreads. Javier Rodriguez is the artist on this, who is just amazing. And he does these incredible, inventive double page spreads that are just beautiful. There's an entire issue that is told landscape format, It's the whole thing is fantastic. It was, a Doctor Strange B title, so therefore it did not run for very long, but it is excellent. I definitely recommend people read that.
I'm definitely in. So now that I've once again steamrolled Kirsty's run of show, what are we moving on to? Are we going to talk about Secret Invasion now?
Yeah, so next week's Marvel Standom will be doing Secret Invasion episode 1, which comes out on 21st of June. Alec and I have been lucky to see the first 2 episodes, and we'll perhaps offer some spoiler-free thoughts on it to wrap the episode up. Would you be up for that, Alec?
Sure. I was not prepared for this, but I can summon up all the hate in my heart pretty quickly.
Ooh. I have not watched my screeners, so all I know is what I've seen in the trailers and that 5-minute clip. And I've been intrigued. Like, I've been, pretty excited about this show. And seeing Alec and Kirsty having lukewarm responses right now is kind of hurting me a little. And Al, how about you? Did you get screeners? Have you had a chance to watch the first 2 episodes?
I'm not a getting screeners guy. I'm just a schmuck. But
I mean, I'm just a schmuck and I still get screeners. So like,
I'm looking forward to it. All the comments I've seen today on Twitter about it have been mainly along the lines of this is Marvel wanting their own Andor. And I don't know the extent to which that is in any way fair or accurate. Because shaking your head, no, it's not. It's not an Andor.
Yeah, I've seen a few people doing their reactions tweets so that they can get in the reactions article on it, which I'm guilty of producing every time one of these things comes out. And it's there was a lot of this is Marvel's Andor, and after seeing it, I just find that quite laughable. No, it's not Marvel's Andor. Andor is a great show, written well, paced excellently, although I know a lot of people thought it was a bit slow to get started, and kind of a slow burn overall. Secret Invasion is poorly paced and tonally messy, and it doesn't quite work for me yet. I thought the first episode was pretty bad. The second episode was a bit better. But it's got some problems.
Unfortunately for Secret Invasion, like, it was the first Marvel thing that I watched after Across the Spider-Verse. And after we talked about the level of effort and care and love that went into Across the Spider-Verse, to go back to the reality where we're just back on the Marvel TV assembly line was whiplash inducing. Maybe Secret Invasion isn't even like as bad or uninspiring as I think it is. Maybe that's just part of the perspective, but I feel like I'm just reaching my personal limit with Marvel TV properties that don't put in the effort. And I'm sure people are working hard on it. Like, there are actors, there are writers, there are producers. I'm sure they're all doing their best. But the assembly line nature of these shows is really starting to become pretty grating.
That's disheartening. I will say I was not enamored of Andor after 2 episodes either. And then of course it became just like, it was my number 2 TV show last year after Interview with the Vampire. Like, it was just like, and at least one of those episodes was like the best hour of TV I watched all year. So maybe there's hope for Secret Invasion, right?
There's like literally Stellan Skarsgård in Andor looks down the barrel of the camera and said, "I made my mind a sunless place. I burned down my life for a future I'll never see." Like, the idea of something like coming out of any of the 4 remaining episodes of Secret Invasion is pretty wild.
And for Alec and Kirsty to be in perfect lockstep on like, this is a mediocrity is not not thrilling.
Yeah, I mean, they want a serious conspiracy thriller. They want to go for the Winter Soldier vibes. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of guys in goofy green masks running around, and it just doesn't quite work. Like, Captain Marvel got it right by bringing them in as allies, and the Skrulls just, just aren't working here for me, but we'll see.
In Andor, though, surely you've also got a bunch of guys in goofy masks.
Everyone needs to get off the "This is Marvel's Andor" train.
If I hear somebody compare this to Andor one more time, I swear to God.
Spend one whole episode. Episode 4 of Secret Invasion is literally the domestic drama of Nick Fury's impending divorce, and it's just them all around their kitchen table complaining at each other. That's when we know it's Marvel's Andor.
Can't wait.
I'm just hoping that, we get 3 episodes of very serious spy stuff, and then Madison turns up with her cocktail and Benedict Wong in the background.
That's a far superior Marvel show.
There's like a possibility that this show could get better, and that it could retrospectively, those first 2 episodes could work better.
I like how you say that in the same way as that, that Onion article that's like, doctor and patient have wildly differing interpretations of the same statement, and the doctor's like, well, I said he had a 1% chance of survival, and the patient's like, he said I have a chance.
Well, is that it? Are there any final thoughts on Meet the Skrulls or Secret Invasion this week?
Go read Meet the Skrulls. You'll enjoy it.
Yes.
There's a one shot which we didn't mention, which we should mention, which came out after Meet the Skrulls and has the Meet the Skrulls characters, which is Road to Empire, the Kree Skrull War. Am I right in
I think
that's
so.
what's going, something like that? But it functions effectively as both a coda to the Meet the Skrulls story and a primer for the Empire crossover, which actually is, as big Marvel crossovers go, I think it's one of the better ones they've done in recent years.
Cool. I have not read this. I thought it was over with Meet the Skrulls, so I'm glad to know there's a little bit more. Al, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you remind everybody where they can find you?
If people want to find me, they can go over to Twitter, where I am at House2Astonish. And the reason for that faintly ridiculous name is because that is also the name of the comic book podcast, which I co-host with my friend Paul O'Brien, which can be found over at house2astonish.com, now in its fabulous 14th year. And also I do a show for Terry Pratchett fans called Desert Island Discworld, and there's the first new episode of that in 6 months coming out this Sunday. So that's over at desertislanddiscworld.com.
Thank you so much. And folks, thank you, because that is it for another episode of Den of Geek Presents Marvel Standom Live. Don't forget, make sure you're following us on YouTube and, of course, twitch.tv/DenofGeekTV. We have 6 episodes in a row coming, which now seems like a threat with these early Secret Invasion reactions. So we'll see. We're also going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, and we'll have some stuff coming out of that in July. Don't forget, we are at Marvel Standom on Twitter and Instagram. Drop us a line. Let us know your burning questions. Tell us what you want us to cover in upcoming episodes. Don't forget, we also have a DC show. Check out DC Standom where you can on all major podcast platforms. And of course, our amazing horror and paranormal show, Talking Strange, hosted by the brilliant Aaron Sagers. If you came in late, you'll be able to watch this entire episode on denofgeek.com or at our YouTube home of Den of Geek US. And don't forget, you can check out past episodes there and also wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you once again to Andrew Haley, the best producer in the multiverse. Thanks to Michael R., who makes the audio version of this show all it can be. But most of all, thank every one of you for watching, listening, following, and subscribing. You know the drill. This has been Marvel Standom on the Den of Geek Network. Until next time, remember, folks, we stand together.